ॐ नमो नारायणाय ॐ नमो नारायणाय
Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Paramagurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Sarvagurubhyo Namaha. So we're continuing on with our discussion of Sharanagati Gadya, which is the first Gadya of Gadya Traya, the three Gadyas of Ramanuja. And we got up to, we did the Sri Prapati, or the surrender to Lakshmi, to help us to surrender to the Supreme Lord. And so we finished aphorism number 5. And then at the end of aphorism number 5, it says, Ata Dwayam. Here is the place to chant Dwaya mantra, Sriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Prapadye Shrimate Narayanaya Namaha, which is the Sharanagati, or the Prapati, the mantra of surrender. So here, Dwayam, having given up father, mother, wife, sons and other relatives, friends and preceptors, gems and wealth, and corn, fields and houses, as also all upayas means other means for trying to attain moksha, prescribed in the Shastras, like Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, etc. All objects of enjoyment, along with joyful experience of my own pure, freed self from the body. And I think I mentioned this before, just as a bit of a recap. That would be Kaivalya Mukti, the enjoyment of the self, Atmanubhava. I seek as my sole resort the Supreme Being. Thy 2 feet, which have traversed the whole world. So here the Dwayam means, here the meaning of the mantra called Dwaya has been practically explained, or it can also mean that here the mantra Dwaya is to be uttered. So I finished off last time speaking about that. So now we're going to go to, let's have a look at aphorism 7 here. O God of gods, thou art my mother, my father, thou art my relative, and thou art my preceptor. Thou art the vidya, or knowledge, and vidya can also mean not only knowledge, but a means to liberation. There are 32 Upanishadic vidyas in the Upanishads. There are 32 methods or meditations. One of them is called Nyasa Vidya, which means Prapati or surrender, Sharanagati. But there are 31 other ways of meditating upon the Supreme Absolute Truth, Sriman Narayana, and attaining liberation, given in the Upanishads. So you are my Vidya, in joining meditation. You are my wealth, and you are my all. You are my everything. That is aphorism number 7. Let's have a look at what Satyamurti, we've also been looking at the commentary by Satyamurti Iyengar here. So he says, again, just to recap before the end of 5, as all these closely follow the formulations in Dwaya mantra, that mantra is mentally recollected by the saint at this stage. Future chanters follow suit. So again, you can mentally remember the Dwaya, you can remember the meaning of the Dwaya, or you can actually chant the meaning. You can chant the Dwaya mantra at this point, like that. So then that was aphorism 7. So what does he say about aphorism 6 and 7? Quoting 2 shlokas, or 2 verses from the Puranas, the saint, meaning Ramanuja, solemnly affirms his complete aloofness from the material world, all earthly relations, comrades, preceptors, etc., and worldly possessions. One and all, preparatory to his surrender to the Lord's lotus feet, which once spanned all worlds, right? So in the Vaman avatar, otherwise as a dwarf, he spanned the 3 worlds with his strides. Idam Vishnu Vichakrame Tredani Padam Samudamasya Pagum Sule. It says in the Veda, Trini Pada Vishnu Vichakrame, right? So Trini Pada, 3 steps. He took 3 steps, and he was called Trivikrama, the one who took 3 steps. So that Trivikrama avatar is what Ramanuja is remembering, that he took all those 3 steps, and in doing so, he was offered a small gift of land by Bali Maharaj, Bali Chakravarti, King Bali. And King Bali didn't realize that the Lord is going to take 3 steps and he's going to cover the whole universe. In fact, in 2 steps, he covered the material world with 1 step, the spiritual world with another step, the Lila Vibhuti and the Nitya Vibhuti. And then he was offered 3 steps of land. So he took the 3rd step on the head of Bali Maharaj. He took him also. So this is the point, that Bali surrendered unto Vaman Dev, and also to Trivikram, and therefore Trivikram is taking him completely, everything. So Ramanuja is remembering this avatar of the Lord that took everything, right? Because actually everything belongs to him. In the Isopanishad it said, Isa vasyam idam sarvam yad kincha jagatam jagate tena chaktena punjita madgada kasisviddanam. That the Lord owns and controls everything, right? Even in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Bhuta, Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam Gyatvam Shanti Michiti, Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. He is Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. In the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that he is the owner and enjoyer of everything. So like that. So nothing really belongs to us. So when we say we're surrendering something, we're not really surrendering anything, because he owns it already, right? It's his property. It's just a realization that he owns us. He owns everything, this material world, and the souls, all the souls in the universe are all dependent upon him as the controller and the owner of all of us, and the supporter and maintainer. Okay, so continuing on, this has to be appreciated in its proper perspective, namely that he looked upon all these not in terms of personal relationship, but as an integral part of the Lord's possessions, right? All of these other things are an integral part of the Lord's possessions. They belong to him. Studiously discarding at the same time the disparate elements among them, the ungodly, the sense-buried, tainted by gross worldliness. Okay, so they also belong to the Lord. So continuing on with aphorisms 8. So 8 to 10. So thou art the father of the world. So there are 2 quotations here in 6 and 7. Aphorism 6 and 7 are supposed to have come from Puranas. So we have to look those up and see exactly which Puranas they come from. Anyhow, aphorism 8. You are the father of the world, of those that move and those that do not move. You are the object of homage and reverence to all of them. You are the preceptor or the guru, the teacher, and the one to whom supreme reverence is due. There is no one equal to you. How then could there be anyone greater than you in all the 3 worlds, O you of unequaled might? So this is then aphorism 9, which comes from Gita, chapter 11, verse 43. Therefore, bowing down before you and with bent body, I seek to propitiate you, who are the ruler worthy of all praise, like a father with his son, like a friend with his friend, like one who loves with one who loves him. You should bear with me, O Lord. Then Gita, chapter 11, verse 44, the next verse after that. Pardon all the varied and innumerable offenses committed by me for beginningless time, with the mind, the speech, and the body. Countless sins of omission and commission, sins against thee, sins against thy devotees, and other unpardonable sins, some of which have begun to yield their fruit, and some which have not, sins that were committed in the past, sins that are committed at present, sins that will be committed in the future. Pardon all of them without exception. So here he's talking about sins of omission and commission, right? So there's a sin which you commit, and then if you do something bad, right, or sinful, if you don't do something which you're supposed to do, like do Sandhya Vandanam or something like that, some activity which you're supposed to perform, some duty which you're supposed to perform, but you neglect that, that is called a sin of omission. You have omitted that to do that duty, and therefore that's a sin. Then a sin which you actually perform something sinful, that's called a sin of commission. So omission and commission. Okay, so here he says the slokas or the verses in these aphorisms are extracted from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Srimad Bhagavad Gita. The first of these three slokas, so there might be slight difference in the numbering system here between the two books, but anyhow, we'll deal with it. So the first of the three slokas helps Ramanuja, who had in an earlier aphorism discarded the host of earthly relations and abjured all rejected all worldly possessions, to disclose that he looks upon the Lord as all in one, from whom all knowledge emanates, the source of all wealth and learning. In the next two aphorisms, he echoes the sentiments conveyed by Arjuna to Lord Krishna on beholding his Vishvarupa, or universal form, cosmic form of stupendous magnitude, namely, O Lord of peerless glory, you are the Father of the universe, with all its contents, mobile and stationary. You are the universal teacher, and are therefore the superior, worthy of utmost respect. If there is none equal to you in any respect, how can there be anyone superior to you in all the three worlds? So we just read that in a different translation. So bowing down and prostrating before you, I therefore propitiate you as the supreme and praiseworthy, and crave your pardon. O God, dear and merciful unto me that you are, you should forgive me, your beloved one, just as a repentant son is forgiven by his father, and a friend and a friend by his mate. Okay. So continuing on, text 11, right? Pardon everything of the nature of perverse notions in me, concerning the self and concerning the whole world, which have persisted from beginningless time, and also everything of the nature of perverse conduct, concerning all things which persist at present and which may persist in the future. So, and Satyamurti Iyengar gives this aphorism as the saint prays for the Lord's complete forgiveness in respect to all his sins of commission and omission, affront to God and the godly, etc., committed in the long past, continued in the current span, and likely to be carried over to the future by dint of age-long propensities, prostituting the God-given facilities of thought, word, and deed. Aphorism 12. As I cry, I, your servant, seek refuge under thee. I am your servant. Help me to leap over Prakriti, this material nature, the creation of divine sport, otherwise known as Lila Vibhuti, with its three qualities or gunas, the Rajaguna, Tamaguna, and Satyaguna. So we have the goodness, passion, and ignorance, which has been flowing like a stream as a result of my karma from beginningless time, which conceals from me your essential nature, which causes perverse notions and makes me think of it as something enjoyable, and which, in the form of the body and the senses, makes me think of it respectively as the seat of enjoyment and the instruments of enjoyment, and which even in the state of pralaya or dissolution, right, remains in its subtle form. So here he gives a different translation. Here, the saint spells out a different set of transgressions of which he has been guilty in the past, which currently persist and likely to be carried forward to the future, and invokes the Lord's redemptive grace to redeem him, to absolve him of all such sins. These transgressions are his indulgence in self-protection, overlooking the Lord's inherent role in the matter, and aspiring for sensual pleasures instead of turning his mind solely to God in sweet contemplation of his greatness and grandeur. Right. So these transgressions are his indulgence in self-protection, overlooking the Lord's inherent role in matter and aspiring and that soul aspiring for sensual pleasures instead of turning his mind solely to God in sweet contemplation of his greatness and grandeur. So aphorism 14, right? So make me wise. Here it says 13, make me wise. Make me a wise man. The Gyani described in these 3 slokas of the Bhagavad Gita. So now we're going to have those 3 slokas in sloka. So the first is, among them, the Gyani, the man of wisdom, is eternally attached to me. He is devoted solely and exclusively to me. I am extremely dear to the Gyani and the wise man. And also, so he is dear to me beyond all description. Generous indeed are they all but the Gyani I consider as my very self, because longing for union with me, right, for liberation, for sayujyam, for eternal, very close service, eternal service to me, he clings to me alone as the highest goal. At the end of many as an existence, the Gyani or the wise man worships me with the conviction that Vasudeva is all, Vasudeva Savam Iti, Sa Mahatma Sadula Baha, right? The goal as well as the means of reaching it. He is indeed a great soul, and it is extremely difficult to find one like him in this world. Enable me to acquire parabhakti, referred to in 3 places in the Gita. I am capable of being attained, the Lord says, O Partha, by soul and exclusive devotion, bhakti to me, love. Having realized the pure self within him and within his mind unclouded by karma or suffering of any kind, he neither grieves at any sad event nor desires anything of worldly gain. Having become indifferent to all things desired by others, he soon attains devotion or bhakti to me. So here he explains these verses too. In sloka 14 of the chapter 7 of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has pointed out that it is impossible to forward or to cross across Maya or delusion. Yes, so you're asking if Ramanuja is speaking about property in the Gadya, why does he request to the Lord to be a Gyani? The Gyani is most, in Bhagavad Gita, the Gyani is the one who knows the actual fact. What is the actual facts that have been pointed out up until now? The actual facts that have been pointed up until now is that the Lord owns and controls everything. So that's also described in the Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter. So in the 7th chapter, Krishna says that there are these 4, there's 4 types of people who are devotees, who are suras, who turn towards him, right? And there are 4 types of people who turn against him. But out of the 4 that turn towards him and who are devotees, who are Vaishnavas, right, who are devotees and who are refugees, bhaktas and prapanas, right? The best one is the Gyani, the one who actually knows the situation in full, who has knowledge of the situation, that he is actually owned and controlled by the Lord. So that's, in that sense, he desires to be the Gyani, because that's, the Gyani is the one that is most beloved of the Lord, and who also most loves the Lord, the one who actually knows the situation in full. So that's the point. And so Maya Pritigyana, Surabhava Mashruta, Naradama, and these are the 4 types of people that turn away from Krishna. And there are 4 types of people that turn towards Krishna: the Gyani, the Arto Jigyasar Artati Gyanicha, Bharatarshaba. Yeah, that's what he's talking about here. So, and then in the next sloka, Krishna says, Gyani Tattvaiva Me Matam, Asita Sa he's the greatest. He's the greatest of all as the Jnani, because Krishna knows that he knows the actual situation, that he is the servant of the Lord, he is the possession of the Lord. So it's impossible to ford the across Maya, to get across Maya, Mama Maya Duryadya, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, with its constituent characteristics of sattva, rajas, and tamas, or goodness, passion, ignorance. The obstacle introduced by him in a sporting mood, except by those who take refuge in him, looking upon him as the sole redeemer and sustainer. Taking due note of this, the saint Ramanuja, who has not merely taken refuge in the Lord, but is also very keen to serve him wholeheartedly in every conceivable manner, now prays that the curtain of Maya, which had hitherto obstructed his vision of the Lord by reason of his age-long sins of all kinds, be lifted, and he be enlisted in his service in the manner longed for by him. So, reproducing slokas 17 to 19 in chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita, wherein Bhagavan Sri Krishna has extolled the virtues of the Jnani, the agnostic of rare caliber, saturated in God love, looking upon God as the all-in-one, the great ordainer, sustainer, and redeemer. The Saint Ramanuja beseeches the Lord to elevate him to a similar stature. The gist of these slokas is given below. Of the 4 types of persons who worship me, namely, 1, Artha, stricken with sorrow owing to loss of self and position and wanting to regain them. Artarti, craving for acquisition of wealth and power anew. Jigyasu, number 3, who desires no more than vision of and enjoyment of his own self, Atma. And Jnani, or Gnostic, who knows me as the highest goal and brooks no delay, who doesn't want any delay in attaining me. The Jnani is the best because of his perpetual association with me, solely devoted to me. Dear am I to him beyond words, and he is likewise dear to me. And that's what Krishna says about these 4. And that one, the Jnani especially. All these 4 categories propitiate me, Krishna says, and none else, and thus afford me the opportunity to grant them their desires. These are, according to me, munificent liberal donors, as they exhibit my greatness as the granter of all their wishes, all their wishes, even so, that the Jnani is undoubtedly as good as my very self in my conclusion, because he is engrossed with me as the highest goal, and does not brook or does not suffer any separation from me, and I too cannot bear to be apart from him. It is only at the end of several births, when virtuous deeds have been performed, one could gain the requisite knowledge and take refuge in me and meditate on me, Vasudeva, as all, the highest goal to be attained and the sole means for such attainment. It's very hard indeed to find a person that of such magnanimous mind in this world, with profound knowledge, true and liberal in understanding me as the be-all and end-all of all existence. So in the 15th aphorism, or the 15th text here, it says, make me attain. This is Ramanuja saying, O Lord, make me attain the sole character of one who has Parabhakti, Parajnana, and Paramabhakti. So these are 3 stages, 3 different stages understood in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya of devotion. Parabhakti, Parajnana, and Paramabhakti. So quoting the relevant phrases from Sloka 22 of chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita, Sloka 54 of chapter 11, and Sloka 54 of chapter 18 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, wherein Lord Krishna has indicated the specific methods by which single-minded devotion to the Lord is generated in the aspirant for attaining him, the saint Ramanuja now prays that he too should be enabled by the Lord to attain similar heights of devotion. So, text 16. Having attained the infinite and unsurpassed bliss of the experience of Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord Sriman Narayana, full, continuous, eternal, clear, and having no other end in view, the experience which has resulted from Parabhakti, Paragyana, and Paramabhakti, may I become the eternal servant of Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord Sriman Narayana, finding my sole joy in fulfilling all his purposes in all states and situations without any exception, owing to the infinite and unequaled delight arising from such an experience. What follows in Sharanagati Gadya is the response of Bhagavan Sriman Narayana to Sri Ramanuja's prayer as described above. Okay, so now we come at the end of verse 16, we come to where the Lord is going to reply to Ramanuja's entreaties, to Ramanuja's prayers. Once parabhakti, God love, too deep for words, is generated in a person, it will automatically gain momentum and go up in ascending scale to namely paragyana and paramabhakti, the consummate height of devotion, when the devotee can no longer bear separation from the Lord even for a split second. In this aphorism, the saint prays to the Lord that he should also be pushed through the entire gamut of God love as above and made to identify himself with such a devotee in toto, completely, right? Becoming, as it were, part and parcel of it, of that love, right? So not only does Ramanuja pray to become a jnani in the sense of being beloved by the Lord and knowing the actual relationship that he has with the Lord of being the Lord's property, right? And being a servant to the Lord, but he also says, don't let me stay at this point. Let me continue on through the progression of devotion to you, through paragyana, parabhakti, paragyana, and paramabhakti. So now let's have a look at from in this here it's a little bit different here, saying in aphorism 17 he says, in this aphorism the saint prays for the culmination of his devotion of such a high order in his eternal enjoyment of heavenly bliss in the role of the eternal servant of the Lord in heaven or Vaikuntha. The Lord's gracious response to the saint's supplication, his entreaties, his begging the Lord for his for his service or for gaining his devotion. Yes, so these terms, paragyana, parabhakti, and paramabhakti, right? Parabhakti, paragyana, paramabhakti. These are three stages. I think if we look in Yatindra Madhudipika, it'll give us a better understanding of what exactly these different stages are. So to go and look into that right now would be a little bit difficult. So we'll just leave that for now. But we'll pick up and we'll definitely give a more detailed explanation of these different stages of devotion in the way they're understood in Sri Vaishnavism at a future point. So the Lord's gracious response to Saint Ramanuja's supplication, as in aphorisms 5 to 17, is set forth in the aphorisms 18 to 24, which we can see a summary of given below. So, here it says, the Lord says here, though you are lacking in all these those requisites which are enjoined as a means for attaining such service of mind, this is the Supreme Lord Sriman Narayana speaking, though you are overcome by countless sins which stand in the way of obtaining that service, though you are guilty of innumerable offenses against me, though you are guilty of innumerable offenses against my devotees, though you are guilty of innumerable offenses of an unpardonable nature, though your inner nature is deluded by perverse conceit, continuing from beginningless time, which is the effect and the cause of these offenses. Though you are bound by perverse mental impressions, which have been from beginningless time, and which are the effect and the cause of the offenses and the conceit, though you are bound by the form of prakriti or material nature, which is conducive to them, in other words, all these offenses and bad mental impressions, right? Though you are beset by obstacles standing in the way of exclusive and everlasting parabhakti, paragyana, and paramabhakti towards my two lotus feet, obstacles arising, obstacles which are of the nature of the contradiction of true knowledge arising from the experience of pleasures and pains due to the body, to animals and to the gods, from the experience of their causes, and likewise from the experience of other sense objects fit to be discarded. Since you have uttered the Dvaya mantra, Sriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Pavati Shrimati Narayana Namaha, whatever may be the manner of the utterance, whether you did it mentally, whether you did it physically, whether however you made that utterance, even if you did it mistakenly, you didn't know exactly how to chant it correctly, like that. But if you had that intention of surrendering to me, right, is the point here, you will solely, as the result of my compassion, get rid, without any exception, of all obstacles, as well as their causes that stand in the way of exclusive and everlasting parabhakti, paragyana, and paramabhakti towards my two lotus feet. And you will win, by my grace, exclusive and everlasting parabhakti, paragyana, and paramabhakti towards my two lotus feet. And by my grace alone, you will have a vision, just as they are, of my essential nature, swarupa, of my form, of my attributes, of the Nitya Vibhuti, or of Sri Vaikuntha, and the Lila Vibhuti, this material world, and all the accompaniments thereof, in all their fullness. You will then realize by direct vision that your essential nature consists of being controlled by me, and in being solely and exclusively devoted to my service, with the sole and exclusive enjoyment of me, with the sole and exclusive joy of serving me, and with the full, continuous, eternal, distinct, infinite, and unequal joy of experiencing me without finding your sole delight in rendering all forms of service. Without any other end in view, experiencing me without any other end in view, you shall become my eternal servant, finding your sole delight in rendering all forms of service without any exception, and appropriate in all states and situations, delight which arises from the infinite and unsurpassed joy of such an experience of me. Right, so here, Satyamurti Iyengar translates that same thing as, O Ramanuja, this is Sriman Narayana speaking to Ramanuja, merely the chanter of the Dvaya mantra, you have become, merely as the chanter of the Dvaya mantra, you have become an eligible aspirant for all that you have prayed for, notwithstanding the all-round deficiency in you, as represented by you, preventing the fruition of your longing to render eternal service to me in the manner contemplated by you. By my sweet spontaneous grace, I now cut all the impediments said to be standing in the way of the due fulfillment of your cherished desires, and you shall henceforth become saturated with God love in all its phases of parabhakti, paragyana, and paramabhakti, aided by a full and complete realization of your essential nature and my auspicious traits, my supernal or supreme form, and my unique governance of the vast universe. Aphorism 20, absolutely free from afflictions and impediments of any kind, you shall stay happily in Sri Rangam till the end of your current span of life, constantly chanting the Dwaya mantra of great potentiality, mentally reflecting side by side its rich meaning. So here it's stated, such indeed you have become, devoid of the slightest trace of sufferings or obstacles due to the body, the animals, and the gods, right? So Adhyatmik, Adhibautik, and Adhidaivic, right? Remain happy here in Sri Rangam itself until the body is cast off, ever uttering the Dwayam in this way with careful attention to its meaning. So then he says, at the time of the body falling off from you, or passing when you pass away, and solely as a result of my compassion, having a distinct vision of me alone, and with perfect knowledge, without deviating from previous discipline and previous longing, cast off lightly this prakriti, or this gross material body, both in its gross and its subtle form, right? So the gross body and the subtle body also, right? Made of earth, water, fire, air, ether, and mind, intelligence, and ego, the subtle body. As if it were a worn out garment. So cast them aside at the time of your death, right? You will at that very moment become my eternal servant, finding sole and exclusive joy in rendering all forms of service without exception, suited to all states and situations, joy arising from boundless and unsurpassed love, resulting from the full, continuous, everlasting, distinct, boundless, and unsurpassed delight of experiencing me, which is the effect of exclusive and everlasting parabhakti, paragyana, and paramabhakti, seeking no other end, and which will be attained by my grace. Right? Have no doubt about this. So he translates the following as, by my spontaneous grace, you will preserve in the present line of thinking and you will persevere in the present line of thinking and turn your mind solely to me. When you give up your body, cut out in toto from the material shackles of mundane moorings, like unto cast off garments, and attain my feet in heaven to partake of eternal bliss of blemishless service unto me. Let there be no misgiving on your part. So know this for sure, right? So he also says here, have no doubt about this. Have no doubt about this. Just like in the Krishna Charma Sloka, the Lord says, Ma suchaha, don't fear. Don't think that this can ever be wrong, what I'm saying. Right? Have great faith that I will save you, is what Krishna is saying. So in this aphorism, he says, I have never told a falsehood before, nor shall I tell one in the future. Rama never deviates from what he has once said. To one who seeks succor from me as a supplicant, right? Though only once, and says, I am thine, I vouchsafe freedom from fear of all beings. That is the Ramacharma Sloka, Sakrideva Prapannaya, Tavasmiti Yachite, Abhayam Sarvabhutebhyo, Tadamye Tad Vratam Mama, from Valmiki Ramayana. Having given up all rights of expiation, seek me alone as the means to salvation. I will release you from all sins. Do not grieve. These words were all uttered by myself, and that is the Krishna Charma Sloka. Sarvadhanaman parityaja ma me kam sharanam bhaja aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami masachaha. So by way of strengthening your belief in my assurance as above, may you recall my affirmation during my advent on earth as Krishna, that I had not uttered anything untrue before, nor will I do so in the future. My assurance to Mother Kaikeyi during my advent as Lord Rama, that my tongue shall not utter any word which lends itself to more than one meaning. My exposition at the seashore of my creed, responding positively to the call of the destitute, who but once submitted himself to my protection in the context of granting asylum to Vibhishana, when in Vibhishana Sharanagati, when Vibhishana came, the brother of Ravana came and surrendered to the Lord on the seashore in southern India, then the Lord Rama proclaimed this Sakrideva Prapannaya, the Rama Charma Sloka. And 4, by solemn assurance to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, to absolve anyone who takes sole refuge in me of all his sins, Bhagavad Gita 18:66. Continuing on with 24, aphorism 24. Hence, be free of all doubts in regard to your having the true knowledge, the true vision, and the true attainment of myself, and remain happy. Right? The concluding sentence which follows is Sri Ramanuja's prayer. Enable me to have, O Lord, the remembrance of thee at the last moment, which results from service to thee. This verse is only found in some editions, this last verse. So, in aphorism 24, in the light of what I have said so far, may you rest in peace without the at least inkling of doubt to the matter of your fully comprehending me physically and mentally, regarding eternal service unto me in heaven, Sri Vaikuntha, and in achieving all your cherished ambitions in that direction. The author concludes his piece by praying to the Lord to enlist him in service in the yonder heaven, in the light of his current submission, overlooking his failure to meditate on the Lord during his dying moments. Right? So even if I don't remember you at the time of death, this is where the Varaha Charama Sloka comes in, where Lord Varaha says, even if you don't remember me at the time of death, aham smarami mad bhaktam nayami paramam gatim. Even though I will remember you, the Lord says, I will remember you at the time of death, and I will take you to the supreme abode. So this is also brought into here, the third Charma Sloka of Lord Varaha. So this so-called concluding passage has, however, not been commented upon by any of the principal commentators, namely Perivacham Pillai, Shrudha Prakashika Bhatta, Sudarshana Suri, or Vedanta Deshika. It could therefore be reasonably concluded that the Gadya ends with the preceding aphorism 24 itself. So that takes us to the end of Sharanagati Gadya. The next is Sri Ranga Gadya. So right at the end there, Ramanuja brings in the Ramacharma, first of all, the Ramacharma Sloka, the Krishna Charma Sloka, and the Varaha Charma Sloka. And all these three Charma Slokas together give us a very good understanding of the meaning of Sharanagati or property. So that thus ends, he wraps it all up with that. So the Lord promises all these things in these three verses. So there are whole books which are written about these three verses. The Mumukshapadi goes into much detail about, and also the Rahasya Granthas of Vedanta Deshika and Pilalokacharya, as well as Malavala Mamani's commentaries. They go into much detail about the Krishna Charma Sloka. Also, Vedanta Deshika has written a book specifically about the meaning of Ramacharma Sloka, and also specifically about the meaning of Varaha Charma Sloka. And we have both of those books. If we look on the YouTube channel at the reference at the end of this video, you'll see that there are classes on these works on the Ramacharma Sloka and the Varaha Charma Slokas by Vedanta Deshika.
Om Namo Narayana.